The night of April 26, 1986, fell upon Pripyat like a heavy, silent blanket before the earth tore open beneath Reactor 4. The explosion was not merely mechanical. It was an act of violence that ripped through the Soviet secrecy surrounding the plant with terrifying suddenness. 2 engineers died instantly in the blast, their lives extinguished by the immediate violence of graphite and water-meeting fuel. Others were severely burned, carried away into hospitals where radiation would claim its toll. Of 237 hospitalized workers, 134 showed symptoms of acute radiation syndrome. 28 died within 3 months, marking the only instance in commercial nuclear power history with radiation-related fatalities among workers. Rated at maximum severity on the International Nuclear Event Scale, within 36 hours a 10-kilometer exclusion zone was established. Evacuation initially removed 49,000 people from their homes before the zone expanded to 30 kilometers, resulting in the evacuation of approximately 68,000 more. Over 500,000 personnel became known as Chernobyl liquidators, cleaning up the aftermath. The initial cost was estimated at 18 billion rubles, later totaling us $700 billion. 6,000 cases of childhood thyroid cancer occurred within affected populations by 25. This ignition marked the end of the quiet night and the beginning of a long burning history. On the morning of April 26th, a plume of invisible death rose from the cooling towers in Pripyat. The Soviet state insisted stability remained intact, masking the catastrophe. Yet across the border, Sweden detected the anomaly first. Their instruments registered elevated radiation levels drifting over their territory. This foreign data forced a slow evacuation of 49,000 people before the true gravity was acknowledged by Moscow. The exclusion zone expanded from 10 to 30 kilometers, yet initial panic remained contained behind bureaucratic silence. 2 engineers died instantly in the explosion, while hundreds more suffered burns and acute radiation syndrome. The government claimed no one had been exposed beyond safety limits, a lie that would haunt them for decades. 50,000 souls fled their homes into the night, leaving behind lives untouched by the invisible poison now saturating the air. They became refugees not of war, but of physics. Costs were measured in billions and lost years, yet the true toll remained silent within radioactive dust. This was not merely an accident. It was a fundamental breaking of the laws that govern our existence. Silence itself spoke volumes to those listening with sensitive ears, while the deaf remained blind to the catastrophe unfolding beneath their boots. Humanity stood on the edge of the abyss until Swedish censors screamed into quiet night. On the morning of April 26, 1886, the 4th reactor at Chernobyl gave way to catastrophe. The International Nuclear Event Scale marks this event alongside Fukushima as maximum severity. Within 36 hours, a 10-kilometer exclusion zone sealed Pripyat in silence. Later expanded, it claimed 68,000 souls beyond the initial 49,000. 2 engineers died instantly. 2 others burned before the radiation claimed its toll. Among 237 hospitalized workers, 134 suffered acute radiation syndrome. 28 of these patients would die within 3 months, the only instance in commercial nuclear history where radiation directly killed the workforce. 500,000 personnel became the liquidators, a vast army facing invisible death to contain the fallout. They were the human shield against the storm of isotopes. The cost was 18 billion rubles, yet the true tally grew to $700 billion by 2026. 6,000 cases of childhood thyroid cancer emerged within affected populations by 2005. 15 of those children would not live past their youth. They breathed the dust while the world watched from afar. This silence is heavy. The cost was measured not just in currency, but in the cells of the population. Their sacrifices remain etched in the collective memory of survivors. The explosion at Reactor 4 near Pripyat marked the maximum severity on the International Nuclear Event Scale, a catastrophe standing alongside Fukushima in human reckoning. Within 36 hours, the Soviet government established a 10-kilometer exclusion zone, evacuating around 49,000 people before expanding the boundary to 30 kilometers. This expansion resulted in the evacuation of approximately 68,000 more residents who fled the radiation cloud. The immediate accident sequence killed 2 engineers and severely burned others during the frantic initial response. Of the 237 workers hospitalized following the event, 134 showed symptoms of acute radiation syndrome, and 28 of the ARS patients died within 3 months. This makes it the only instance in commercial nuclear power history with radiation-related fatalities among workers. As of 25, 6,000 cases of childhood thyroid cancer occurred within affected populations, with 15 of them fatal. The Soviet response involved more than 500,000 personnel known as Chernobyl liquidators, men and women who worked in dangerous conditions cleaning up the site. The cost was estimated at 18 billion rubles, about $85 billion in 2026, with a later total estimate of $700 billion. The aftermath complicates our understanding with an expanded zone and thousands of cases of childhood thyroid cancer that define a generation's reality. For decades, the sarcophagus stood as a temporary tomb over Reactor 4. But in 2016, humanity decided to build again. A steel arch, the new safe confinement, began its descent from the sky, spanning 240 meters across the exclusion zone. It was an engineering monument born of necessity, a silver umbrella designed to contain the radioactive silence for another century. This structure represents not just metal and concrete, but the immense financial toll paid in blood and memory. $700 billion worth of effort went into shielding the wind from the dust of that April morning. The cost is measured beyond currency, etched into the lives of 6,000 children born with thyroid disease, and the 68,000 souls who left Pripyat forever. Evacuations expanded to 30 kilometers in the final phase. Now, the arch glides over the old ruin like a protective wing. We watch as the final bolts are secured, sealing away the history of radiation that claimed 28 workers within months. The disaster remains, but the sky above it is clear again. This confinement honors the liquidators who died building the first seal, ensuring that the truth stays buried while the world moves on. It stands as a monument to survival against the abyss, closing the book on greatest industrial catastrophe in history.